So I like smartphones. You know, most of our videos on this channel are focused on smartphones, but there is one thing that I like more than smartphones, and that is pizza, of course, but also computers, especially laptop, especially MacBooks. And that's because I actually only use my smartphone for maybe 1 to 2 hours a day, not even joking. But I'm on my laptop for somewhere around 10 to 12 hours, sometimes even more than that, so for me, even a small improvement such as, you know, a slightly brighter display or a better keyboard, improvements like this from year to year are actually gigantic improvements for me. We've all heard rumors about this new 16-inch MacBook Pro coming out, and you probably know that I've been using 15-inch MacBook Pros since 2013 on a daily basis. I used pretty much every single model since then, so yeah, I was of course extremely excited about this upcoming 16-inch MacBook Pro. So we even made quite a few Leaks and Rumors episodes on this, but now that it's out, there we go, this is it. This is my final thoughts, my full review on this new 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now, this video is actually split into 7 different sections, covering everything from the design, the display, the keyboard, performance, special features, battery life, and value. So yeah, buckle up, grab some snacks, some drinks, and enjoy. Okay, so starting off with the design, unlike Dell, Asus, Lenovo, and other laptop manufacturers that release new designs every single year, Apple is quite a bit different. You see, Apple only releases a new design every 4 years or so. We got the first MacBook Pro design back in 2006, but that was actually based off of the PowerBook G4 from 2003. Then we got a second generation in 2008, 5 years later, which featured a completely new unibody design, and it was also much thinner and lighter. It had 5-wire 800, and then Thunderbolt 1 in the 2011 model. Then in 2012, 4 years later, we got the third generation, which was actually the biggest change ever in a MacBook Pro yet, with an even thinner design, thinner bezels, it had full flash storage, a thinner keyboard, and the highest resolution display in any laptop at that time, the Retina display. We got Thunderbolt 2 with double the speeds of Thunderbolt 1, and the I/O was changed around quite a bit. Overall, this was a huge update, and that was my favorite MacBook Pro ever. Like, I absolutely love that machine, and it is still my favorite piece of tech ever. Then in 2016, 4 years later, we got a 4th generation MacBook Pro, which was even thinner. It added a touch bar in place of the function keys, added Thunderbolt 3, which was now double the speed again of Thunderbolt 2, and it changed the ports again. It made the keyboard thinner again, and added a new space gray color. But that was a very controversial generation, which had a ton of issues, lawsuits on keyboard issues, CPU throttling, speakers breaking. Like, I've had countless of issues myself, and even made a few videos of how horrible my entire experience, not just with Apple's, MacBook Pro, but also with Apple's customer support has been. So in case you haven't seen those videos, definitely watch them here. And now, in late 2019, 3 years after this 4th generation came out, we have the 16-inch MacBook Pro. But you see, I'm not sure that this is a new generation. And that's because visually it looks identical to the 4th generation. We have the same colors, the same ports, the same number of ports even. We do get some visual changes though, such as a new keyboard, a slightly larger display with slightly thinner bezels, and yeah, that's actually it. There's nothing else visually. So yeah, because of this, I don't really think that this is a brand new generation. Also, the 13-inch MacBook Pro hasn't been updated yet, so we might be getting a 14-inch model in early 2020, and we even made a full video just on that here, so you can watch that. That was a pretty interesting video to make. But for now, this is the only MacBook Pro, the new MacBook Pro that we got, the 16-inch, which fully replaces the previous 15-inch model. Now, there is one more difference in terms of the design between the 15-inch and the new 16-inch model, and that is the size, the actual size of this laptop. So the 16-inch MacBook Pro is now 1.62 centimeters thick versus 1.55 that the 15-inch 4th generation was, or 1.8 centimeters that the 3rd generation 2012 Retina MacBook Pros were. It's 35.79 centimeters wide versus 34.93 on the 4th generation, or 35.89 on the 3rd generation, and is 24.59 centimeters tall versus 24.07 on the 4th generation, and 24.71 centimeters on the 3rd generation. And it's also noticeably heavier now at 2 kilograms versus 1.83 kilograms on the 4th generation 15-inch model, or 2.02 kilograms on the 3rd generation 2012 Retina models. So the new 16-inch MacBook Pro is now extremely similar in size and weight to the 2012 Retina 15-inch MacBook Pro rather than the previous 2016 generation. And there's a very good reason for these changes, which I'll be covering in the performance section of this video. Overall, even though I do like the slightly more modern design of the 16-inch model, in a way it feels like this design doesn't really fit its body that well. Like for example, the raised keyboard and the raised touch bar, and the separated touch bar from the escape and the touch ID button, they look as if they were designed for a completely different laptop as opposed to the single low profile piece of glass that we had before. I mean, yes, the display does look more modern than before, but if you were to ask me, in terms of the body itself, which MacBook is the new generation, I would say that the previous generation is actually the new generation. Moving on to the display, it's a 16-inch display panel up from the 15.4-inch that we had before, so it is a bit bigger to the point where you'll notice it right away, and it's just a bit more immersive than before, so your field of view is taken more than before with this larger panel. And the bezels are thinner as well now, but not massively. Like the bottom bezel is literally the exact same size as before, the top one is just a tiny bit thinner, and then the side ones are about half the size of the previous 15-inch model. So it definitely has a more modern design, but it's still far from other 2019 laptops, such as for example the Dell XPS 13-inch 2-in-1, which has close to zero bezels, and you know, laptops like that have a much more modern design than even the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Aside from this, we also get a slightly higher resolution display than before, at 3072 by 1920 compared to 2880 by 1800, which gives us a pixel density of 226 ppi versus 220 like we had on the 15-inch model. But realistically, they both look equally as sharp. They both have the same DCI-P3 color gamut, the same viewing angles, the same close to 500 nit of brightness, and essentially the same display panel in terms of the image quality. And I gotta be honest, I'm a bit disappointed here. While this is still a very good panel indeed, like this is the best LCD panel on any 15-inch or 16-inch laptop when it comes to color accuracy, I was hoping for a brighter display or at least a 4K panel like a lot of high-end Windows laptops have. Now, the good news is that Ming-Chi Kuo did report that Apple will be launching an updated 16-inch MacBook Pro in late 2020 with a mini LED display. So this would be similar to what Apple uses in the Pro XDR display, which still is an LCD panel. However, with 575 full array local dimming zones, it's sort of a hybrid between LCD and OLED. So it's not as good as an OLED, but it's much better than an LCD is in terms of black levels. So the display is said to be getting some major updates next year. But yeah, until then, something that we do get are higher scaled resolution options of up to 2048 by 1280 from 1920 by 1200, which means that you do get slightly more screen real estate for your apps and your windows. Now, another new feature when it comes to the display is the variable refresh rate. So it sounds really cool, but it's really not that that impressive. So unlike the iPad Pro's ProMotion display, for example, which can actually go up to 120 Hz, the MacBook Pro's display can now still go up to 60 Hz. It's just that now you can also select 59.94 Hz, 50 Hz, 48 Hz and 47.95 Hz, which is, you know, pretty great for high-end video editors and producers that want to match their refresh rate to the content that they're making. Now, when it comes to the keyboard, we do get a pretty massive upgrade here. So you see, back in 2015, when Apple launched the 12-inch MacBook, they also launched a new butterfly keyboard. So this one included a new butterfly key switch mechanism, as opposed to the standard scissor switch mechanism that pretty much all the other keyboards use, in order to make it thinner, more stable, and also more accurate in terms of typing. Okay, I do get that. The 12-inch MacBook was the world's thinnest laptop at that point, and in order to achieve that, it had to sacrifice on things such as the keyboard. But you see, when Apple released the 4th generation MacBook Pro in 2016, for whatever genius reason, they also included this very thin keyboard. Like, why? I don't know. But yeah, because of this genius idea, we had a ton of complaints about key travel, obviously, on a Pro machine, about how much of a downgrade this keyboard was from the previous 3rd generation MacBook Pro, the Retina MacBook Pros, and what was even worse was that the butterfly key switch mechanism actually broke very, very easily. If a small debris or even a tiny bit of dust got inside the keycap, it would render the keycap and the key itself unusable. And because of how this mechanism was designed, you couldn't just, replace a single key. You actually had to replace the entire top case of the MacBook Pro, which would cost £700 to do so. Yeah. Genius, Apple, just genius, good job. So of course that Apple found themselves in the middle of a number of lawsuits, and they finally released the keyboard replacement program, which includes even the new 2019 13-inch and 15-inch MacBook Pros. Now, since the 2016 model, they even made some tweaks to their keyboard basically every year, to the point where the 2018 and the 2019 generations were much more reliable, but still, they still broke. However, with the new 16-inch MacBook Pro, Apple has now switched back to that traditional scissor-style keyboard switches that a third generation MacBook Pros were using back in 2012. Now, it is a bit thinner than the keyboard on the Retina MacBook Pros, and overall, it's basically in between the third generation and the fourth generation in terms of the key travel and how it feels. And I have to say, this is indeed the best keyboard that Apple has ever put in a laptop to date. Now, it is a bit more wobbly than the butterfly keyboard since, the whole point of the butterfly switch was to be more stable than the scissor switch was. But overall, this is still so much better and I do love it. But unfortunately, Apple no longer has any keyboard repair program with a 16-inch MacBook Pro, which means that if you have a 15-inch 2019 MacBook Pro, for example, and your keyboard breaks, which it will at some point, you'll get a free top case replacement up until 2023. With a pretty good chance of even getting a 16-inch MacBook Pro replacement, whereas, a free repair or even a replacement does not apply with a 16-inch MacBook Pro. And speaking of the keyboard, if you're tired of typing in and remembering all of your passwords across all of your devices, then do check out NordPass, our sponsor for this video. NordPass might sound familiar, and that's because it was actually made by the same cybersecurity experts who built NordVPN, one of the world's most popular VPNs with more than 12 million users worldwide. NordPass lets you save all of your passwords in their app, which is protected by a single secured password as well as Face ID or your fingerprint if you choose to do so. And you also have the option to add a two-factor authentication for an even higher security. All you need to do is just to unlock the app and you can access all of your passwords. It features autosave and autofill, so you don't have to manually save and fill in your passwords. It also features a password generator, which creates secure and complex passwords for you automatically. And the best part about NordPass is that it works on pretty much any device. iOS, Android, as well as extensions in browsers such as Chrome, Firefox, Opera, and Edge, which means that yes, you can actually use NordPass on any device that supports any of these browsers, which is pretty amazing. NordPass also offers 24/7 customer support, 30-day money-back guarantee, and so much more. You get 50% off plus 1 month for free by going to nordpass.com/ZONEofTECH or by using the coupon code ZONEofTECH. And thanks again to NordPass for sponsoring this video. Now, moving on to the performance, this is actually the biggest improvement that we get with the 16-inch MacBook Pro. The CPUs are exactly the same as in the May 2019 refresh of the 15-inch models, which added 8-core processors as well as an improved butterfly keyboard. So we still have the same 8-core Intel i9 9980HK processor with a base clock speed of 2.4 GHz and a turbo boost of 5 GHz, but thanks to the improved cooling system, we actually get a higher CPU performance in both Geekbench 4 and Geekbench 5 when compared to the 2019 15-inch MacBook Pro. And the same thing applies to Cinebench R20, where we get almost 300 points higher with the exact same CPU on the 16-inch model. So next up, we wanted to do some real-life CPU testing, so we ran our ZONEofTECH keyshot benchmark, which includes a pretty complex scene with a few of our logos, and with the exact same settings on all the machines. The 16-inch MacBook Pro finished in 6 minutes and 49 seconds versus 8 minutes and 57 seconds on the 2019 15-inch model with the exact same processor, versus 12 minutes and 22 seconds on the 2018 model, 13 minutes 43 seconds on the 2017 model. So a pretty massive improvement even from the 2019 15-inch model, which had the exact same processor such as this. Also, the clock speed remained at 2.8 GHz compared to 2.5 on the 2019 15-inch model. However, it was running hotter at around 88 degrees Celsius when compared to 75 on the 2019 15-inch model. Now, while the CPU performance is, a pretty good upgrade even over the 15-inch 2019 model, the GPU performance is a massive upgrade. And that's actually because we now get AMD's brand new Navi/RDNA architecture GPUs, which are now based on a new 7nm process. And this is pretty huge because you see, on the 2016, 2017, and 2018 models, and even the 2019 models of the MacBook Pro, Apple still had the Radeon Pro 460, 560, and 560X graphics, all of which were based on AMD's old Polaris architecture from 2016. Now, Apple did introduce the new Vega 20 graphics option in November 2018 as a higher tier GPU option, which was actually very powerful and a huge improvement over the Polaris architecture. And now the new Navi architecture is another big improvement over even the Vega 20. We get the AMD Radeon Pro 5300M for the baseline model with 4 GB of dedicated video memory, which actually outperforms the Vega 20 by quite a significant margin. And then we get the Radeon Pro 5500M as the higher tier GPU option, which can actually be configured with either 4 or 8 GB of video memory, and that thing is just a monster. In the Unigine Heaven benchmark, for example, we got 18.8 frames per second on the 2016 MacBook Pro, 20.1 on the 2017, 22.6 on the 2018 with the 560X, 37 FPS on the 15-inch 2019 with the Vega 20, and 52 FPS on the 16-inch with the new 5500M with 8GB of dedicated video memory. Then in Fortnite, with the exact same settings, 1680 by 1050, and everything on Epic, we got 20 frames per second on the 2018 model with the 560X, 36 frames per second on the 15-inch model with the Vega 20, and 53 frames per second with the 16-inch with the 8GB 5500M GPU. Now, another big change is when it comes to the RAM. So we now have slightly faster 2666 MHz RAM from the 2400 MHz that we had on the 2019 15-inch model. And we also have up to 64 GB of RAM now from the 32 GB limit that we had with the 15-inch model. Now, our unit has 32 GB of RAM, so we don't have the 64 GB version, and I really wouldn't recommend it, as 32 GB is enough for most people unless you're running a ton of virtualization software. You won't really need it. Storage-wise, we also got another improvement. So while the speeds are similar to what we got before in both Blackmagic and HAG speed test, we now have up to 8 TB of flash storage option from the 4 TB limit that we had before, and that's just insane. Having 8 TB of close to 3 GB per second transfer speeds on a laptop is just incredible for content creators. Of course, this configuration is very expensive, but at least you do have that option if you really need it. Okay, so how does all of this performance translate to some real-world usage? Well, in Final Cut Pro 10, for example, our 15-minute ultimate camera comparison, which is actually one of our most complex projects, this one took 22 minutes to export in H.264 on the 2017 MacBook Pro, 20 minutes on the 2018, 19 minutes on the 2019 with the 560X, 17 minutes and 44 seconds on the 2019 15-inch with the Vega 20, and 13 minutes and 50 seconds on the 16-inch. I've also attached an eGPU to my 2019 15-inch with the 560X with a Radeon 5700 XT inside, and my 2019 15-inch exported our Pixel 4 review in 28 minutes and 34 seconds with the eGPU versus 25 minutes and 24 seconds on the 16-inch without any GPU attached. So there you go, the 16-inch MacBook Pro is even faster than a MacBook Pro plus a more powerful eGPU. And in the BruceX GPU benchmark, the 16-inch MacBook Pro rendered this in 10 seconds versus 26 seconds on my 15-inch 2019 560X, versus 10 seconds on the 2019 15-inch with the Radeon 5700 XT eGPU attached. And now, when it comes to the timeline fluidity, my 2019 15-inch with the 560X was getting around 24 frames per second. This is in our Pixel 4 review project, which is an insanely complex project with a ton of color curves, effects, and animations. However, the 16-inch MacBook Pro was getting about 58 frames per second, which was a massive improvement. So yeah, performance-wise, the MacBook Pro 16-inch is a gigantic improvement, especially GPU-wise, over all the previous models. Now, one single slight issue that I do have here is that the fans themselves are very loud compared to the 15-inch model, and they do kick in more often than before. So that's something to keep in mind, yeah. Okay, so now moving on to the special features, we actually do get a few new ones over the 15-inch 2019 MacBook Pro. So we do get improved speakers, which actually sound pretty amazing. We have a 6-speaker channel now, so 3 on each side, as opposed to 2 on each side, and we now have 1 speaker for the highs, 1 speaker for the mids, and 1 speaker for the bass. So this results in a much clearer sound, to the point where it actually sounds very similar to a mini HomePod. Now, it's not as loud as the 15-inch 2019 MacBook Pro was, interesting enough, so we do lose a bit of volume, but we do gain quite a lot in terms of the clarity.
Empty hearts and neon lights, they're playing with my mind. Gotta get out of here tonight. Oh, I wanna run off and fly, and I'll tell myself it's fine to be alone.
Now, the microphones have also been improved significantly to the point where Apple now calls them studio quality microphones, so here's a quick example. Okay, and this is how the microphone sounds like, and also the front-facing camera. This is the 2017 MacBook Pro, by the way. Now, this is the 2018 MacBook Pro, so this one has a T2 processor, so the image should be a bit nicer, and the microphones should sound a bit clearer as well. And now, this is the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, so this is how the camera looks like, and this is how the microphones sound like. But unfortunately, as you can probably see, the webcam is identical to the one that we had before. So it's just a 720p 30 frames per second camera, which looks pretty horrible today. Like nowadays, we have stuff like 4K 60, a 4K 60 front-facing camera on the iPhone 11 Pro. And yes, unfortunately, this would be impossible to have on a MacBook Pro because of how thin the display is, but they could have easily added at least a 1080p camera, as there are other very thin laptops on the market with a 1080p front-facing camera already. Also, for whatever reason, the 16-inch MacBook Pro does not have Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 802.11ax, which is the next generation of Wi-Fi. Even though the iPhone 11 Pros, they actually do have it. And, not having it on a laptop, which, you use for actual work compared to a phone, which you just use for social media, it just doesn't make any sense. And we also have a lot of laptops in 2019 that do have Wi-Fi 6, so I'm extremely disappointed that Apple didn't go with this route, considering that Wi-Fi 5 or 802.11ac, which is inside of this laptop, has been on MacBooks since the 2013 Retina models. Yeah, for the past 6 years. Also, there's apparently a new sensor in the MacBook that counts the number of times the lid has been opened and closed, which sounds useless, but it's actually very useful when it comes to servicing a MacBook and avoiding issues such as the FlexGate issue happening all over again. Okay, now when it comes to battery life, the 16-inch MacBook Pro comes with a 99.8 watt-hour battery compared to the 83.6 watt-hour battery that we had before on the 15-inch model. And funny enough, 100 watts is actually the limit in terms of what the FAA allows on a single device on an airplane. So I do like how Apple managed to get so close to this. Now, in real-world usage, you can now get up to 11 hours of battery life compared to 10 hours like we had before. Now, in terms of what you'll realistically get, if you're doing any video editing, expect around 2 hours or so, depending on how much you're actually pushing the system. And if you really want to get close to those 11 hours, then you'll have to close everything down and just keep Word open or just lightly browse the web, and that's it. Okay, so in the end, is the 16-inch MacBook Pro worth it? Well, the baseline model starts at $2,400, which is actually the exact same price as before, even though we had a number of leaks suggesting that this MacBook will start at least $3,000. But the thing is, it now offers double the storage, 512GB versus 256 that we had before. We also have the Radeon Pro 5300M processor, the GPU, which gives you basically twice the GPU performance of the Vega 20, or close to twice, which is extremely impressive. And the Vega 20 was actually on the highest end option on the previous 15-inch model, and this is the lowest end one that you can buy. So yeah, the lowest end GPU is better than the previous highest end GPU, which is pretty nuts. We also get faster RAM, faster 6-core processors, thanks to the new thermal system. We get a larger display, a high resolution display, a better keyboard, better speakers, better microphones, and all of these for the same price. And in the UK, for example, the previous 15-inch 2019 model with an 8-core CPU, maxed out 32GB of RAM, the Vega 20 graphics, and 1TB of storage, that was priced at just over £4,000. Now, the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the exact same configuration cost £3,250, and it's much more powerful thanks to that new GPU. In fact, you can even get 64GB of RAM and the highest end GPU option with 8GB of dedicated video memory for £3,790, less than the 15-inch Vega 20 model was with significantly weaker specs. So there you go. The 16-inch MacBook Pro is actually the best value laptop that Apple has ever offered, which is quite interesting. And the baseline model is actually extremely good. It's so good that that's the one that I would recommend to most people. So yeah, like I said, if you do want to upgrade something in the MacBook Pro, then definitely upgrade the RAM first to 32GB, followed by the GPU if you do a lot of 3D work, then the CPU, and only then the storage. So the real question is, am I going to upgrade to this MacBook Pro? And the answer is no, I'm actually not. It's a great laptop, but it's not for me. Obviously, I've had a lot of issues with Apple recently when it comes to, my previous MacBook Pro, so I'll just stick with the 15-inch 2019 replacement that I got. Video on that here. But anyways, the thing is, I don't really edit the videos anymore. I do QC them and I do export them on a MacBook Pro, which, the 2019 is still pretty fast. And personally, I'm really looking forward to the upcoming 14-inch MacBook Pro, but until then, this is an amazing laptop and overall the best laptop on the market for video production. But if you're not fully convinced just yet, then feel free to wait until next year, because that's when Apple will finally release the 10th generation Intel 10th generation processors inside of this new MacBook Pro. Wi-Fi 6 is more than likely coming, and possibly even the new mini LED display that Ming-Chi Kuo was talking about before. So that's going to be a pretty big upgrade even over this one. And if you want to buy one, then definitely use the links below, the Amazon links, because they do support the channel. They don't cost you anything, but they do support the channel and videos such as this one. So thank you. Yeah, definitely let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about this MacBook Pro? Yay or nay? Definitely yay, but not for me. Hey. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.